If you're over 60 and feeling that shaky, hungry crash an hour after meals, don't ignore it. Doctors call it aging, but new research says it's a hidden metabolic block. And the fix starts with one surprising food. Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, who lived past 100 with clarity and grace, used to say that the body has inner energy lines, delicate pathways that communicate how well we are handling the weight of the day. When those pathways are young, they tolerate more noise, more mistakes, more sugar, more rush. But with age, these lines become sensitive. They respond more intensely to small stresses, and one of the quietest stresses of all is the rise of blood sugar after a meal. Not dangerously high numbers, not the spikes that make headlines, just the little ones, the kind that build up over years like dust settling on a shelf no one remembers to clean. Why does this happen? Because after 60, the body's rhythm changes. The pancreas responds a little slower, muscles absorb glucose less efficiently, nighttime repair becomes lighter, more fragile. So even a food that once caused no trouble begins to echo through the body. Dr. Mark Hyman explains this gently. Blood sugar does not need to be dramatically high to be harmful. It simply needs to rise too often. These repeated rises are small interruptions, tiny disturbers of energy and clarity. They do not hurt right away, but they quietly steal from tomorrow. And yet there is a comforting truth hidden inside all of this. The body is not failing. It is asking for a different kind of care, a calmer rhythm, a steadier plate, and sometimes support arrives in the simplest form. There is one everyday food, something humble, accessible, and familiar, that can soften these rises. It slows digestion just enough to keep glucose from rushing into the bloodstream. It creates steadiness without complicated diets, without extreme rules, without fear. Before we reveal that food, we must understand the real reason blood sugar becomes harder to control after 60, not because you're doing something wrong, not because age is an enemy, but because the body transforms and transformation requires new understanding. Today, we will walk together through this change. We will look at the hidden causes of glucose instability, the quiet mistakes most people never notice, and the gentle habits that can restore balance and energy. And then, with all the noise cleared away, we will arrive at that single food, soft, simple, protective, that helps calm the rise in blood sugar after meals. This is not a promise of miracles. It is an invitation to understand your body again, to listen to the signals you once ignored, to rediscover strength in places you may have forgotten to look. Because even after 60, even after loss, even after seasons of struggle, there is still time for energy to return. There is still room for healing. And sometimes it starts with something as small as what you choose to place on your plate. This change is subtle, and because it is subtle, it often goes unnoticed. The same breakfast that once fueled a long workday may now lead to a heavy eyelid. A small serving of bread may feel harmless on the plate, but creates a gentle rise in blood sugar that lingers longer than it used to. Nothing dramatic, nothing alarming, just a series of quiet shifts that accumulate. The body is not malfunctioning. It is adapting to a new stage of life, one where the margin for rapid glucose changes becomes narrower. Reduced muscle mass means less space for glucose to settle after a meal. The bloodstream holds onto it longer, and the body feels the result in the form of mid-morning fatigue or a slower step when rising from a chair. What surprises many people is that sugar rises do not come only from sweet desserts. They often come from the foods most of us consider ordinary and harmless. The soft slice of bread, the warm bowl of pasta, the comforting potatoes, the crackers that accompany tea, the fruit juice that seems so light. These foods break down quickly, entering the bloodstream almost before the meal is over. And because the aging body clears them more slowly, the rise feels steeper, even when the portion is small. Understanding this brings a quiet relief. It shows that the body is not at odds with you, it is communicating. When a meal leaves you tired, thirsty, or slightly unfocused within an hour, it is simply offering information. It is saying in its own gentle way that something in that meal arrived too quickly, overwhelming the storage capacity that has naturally changed with age. A helpful picture is to imagine your body as a house where the storage closets have become smaller over the years. When groceries arrive slowly, everything fits neatly, but when too many items are delivered at once, they spill into the living room. It is not a failure of the house. It is simply a mismatch between the pace of arrival and the space available. There is a moment in every life when simplicity becomes more precious than novelty. when we no longer seek complicated diets or rigid food rules, but something gentler, steadier, something that fits into the rhythm of a quieter home. In this moment, a humble food begins to stand out, not because it is trendy or exotic, but because it has quietly supported human health for centuries. Beans. Soft, familiar, unpretentious beans. Many people carry mixed memories of them. The taste from childhood meals, the warmth of a family pot simmering on the stove, or perhaps a discomfort from times when they were cooked hurriedly. But with age, the body often seeks the very foods it once overlooked, and beans are one of those steady anchors. It is surprisingly common for older adults to avoid beans out of habit, believing they are too heavy or might cause discomfort. Yet the truth is softer than that. When prepared well, when cooked until tender, beans offer something extraordinary for the aging body. They bring with them a type of fiber that slows the speed at which carbohydrates move through the digestive system. They create a gentle buffer, almost like a soft cushion between the meal and the bloodstream. Resistant starch and soluble fiber work quietly, reducing the pace of glucose absorption, flattening the rise that once felt so sudden after lunch or dinner. And they do this without strain, without force, without demanding anything complicated in return. What surprises even researchers is how far-reaching this effect can be. Beans don't just calm the blood sugar of the meal you eat them with, they influence the next meal as well. This subtle phenomenon, known as the second meal effect, means that a small serving of beans at lunch can make dinner more forgiving, more stable, as though the body remembers the steadying presence of fiber hours later. It is one of the reasons why communities known for long, healthy lives rely on beans not as a special treatment, but as an everyday companion. And the beauty of this lies in its simplicity. You don't need large servings. You don't need complicated recipes. Even 2 to 4 tablespoons of soft, well-cooked beans at the beginning of a meal create a gentle shield that slows the arrival of glucose into the bloodstream. This is especially important after 60, when digestion changes pace and the body benefits from foods that do not rush. Canned beans, rinsed well and warmed, can offer the same benefit for those who cook only for themselves or move through the kitchen with slower steps. There is dignity in making things easier without losing nourishment. To picture what beans do inside the body, imagine a swinging door pushed open by a strong breeze. Beans do not close the door. They simply place a steady hand on it, easing the movement so it does not fly open too fast. They slow the rush without stopping the flow, giving the body time to process the meal with greater calm. In a world filled with complex advice and ever-changing health trends, there is something comforting in knowing that one of the most effective supports is also one of the oldest. A food that has sat on the tables of long-lived families for generations. A food that nourishes without noise. A food that adapts to the needs of those who have lived many seasons and now seek stability more than stimulation. And with this quiet support in place, we can now turn to another element that often goes unnoticed. The sugars hiding in everyday foods that disturb this balance and make the body's work even harder after 60. There is a certain innocence in the foods many older adults reach for. The small cup of flavored yogurt that seems gentle on the stomach. The crackers kept near the bedside table for late-night hunger. The packaged soups that feel light and easy on days when aches linger longer than usual. These foods look harmless, almost comforting. Yet inside them lies something that rarely announces itself. Sugar in forms that move quickly, quietly, and without the unmistakable sweetness that would normally warn us. After 60, when the body's pace has shifted and recovery is slower, these hidden sugars don't pass unnoticed. They disturb the bloodstream's calm rhythm, creating subtle rises that accumulate through the day. The aging liver, a remarkable organ that has worked tirelessly for decades, no longer clears these frequent glucose surges with the same efficiency. Each rise, especially when small but repeated, leaves a faint trace. Over time, these traces turn into patterns, and these patterns shape how the body handles energy. The pancreas works harder, the tissues become less responsive, and the liver begins to store more fat around itself and around the pancreas, creating an internal heaviness that is rarely felt directly but often sensed through signs like low morning energy, slower digestion, or the need for an afternoon rest. Many people try to escape this by replacing sugar with artificial sweeteners, believing they are choosing the lighter path. Yet the body, especially the aging body, is sensitive to signals. Artificial sweeteners confuse the communication between the gut and the brain. They send sweetness without nourishment, sensation without substance. This confusion can lead to cravings that appear out of nowhere, or to a sharper rise in glucose when real food finally arrives. It is not failure. It is simply biology responding to mixed messages. Still, there is a gentle way to soften this effect without restricting the foods that bring comfort. A small anchor can transform how the body receives carbohydrates. When a snack carries a partner rich in fiber or protein, the rise in glucose becomes quieter, slower, more manageable. A few spoonfuls of beans left over from lunch, a small handful of nuts, or a bit of chia softened in water can create that anchor. These foods steady the digestion the same way a hand steadies a railing while descending a staircase, not by stopping the movement, but by guiding it. The image of hidden sugars as visitors entering through the back door carries truth. They do not knock, they do not make noise. They slip in quietly, rearranging the house before anyone notices. But once you begin to see their patterns, once you understand how they behave in the body after 60, they lose some of their power. Awareness becomes a soft form of protection, and simple combinations of foods can help restore the balance that aging sometimes unsettles. This brings us to the evening hours, a time of day when the body is beginning to slow, when the world grows quieter, and when small choices can shape how the next morning will feel. The way blood sugar behaves through the night depends greatly on what happens in these hours, and understanding this can change the way the body greets the sun. Evening has a different weight after 60. The body moves more slowly, the day settles differently in the bones, and the quiet of the house becomes more noticeable than it once was. It is during these hours that many people reach for something simple, something easy to digest, something that feels gentle on a tired stomach, a piece of toast, a bowl of cereal, a little fruit, a few crackers. These foods arrive softly, but inside the body, they behave with more force than expected. Because at night, the body's ability to handle carbohydrates is not the same as in the morning. The same slice of bread that felt harmless at noon can raise blood sugar much higher at 8 in the evening. And because sleep is approaching, the body has fewer tools to bring those levels back down smoothly. The result can be felt in subtle ways: restless sleep, waking up too early, or rising with a sense of heaviness before the day has even begun. The body carries the imprint of that late rise in glucose into the morning hours, shaping the energy available for the first steps out of bed. Insulin sensitivity, the body's ability to handle sugar gently and efficiently, naturally declines at night. This is not failure. It is the body preparing for rest, slowing its processes, conserving its strength. Yet when simple carbohydrates arrive during this slowing, they create a rise that echoes through the night. Across long-living communities, the evening meal reflects this understanding without ever naming it. Their dinners are small, unhurried, and rich in fiber. Lentils, chickpeas, and other legumes appear often, not as a special health strategy, but as a tradition shaped by generations. These meals digest slowly, sending nutrients into the bloodstream at a measured pace that respects the body's nighttime rhythm. There is a kind of wisdom in this simplicity, a recognition that the body deserves calm in the hours before sleep. For those who feel the need for something before bed, even the smallest anchor can make a profound difference. A spoon or two of beans softens the rise that comes from toast or fruit. It slows the arrival of glucose and helps the body remain steady as it moves toward rest. This gentle buffer is not about restriction. It is about creating the conditions for a quieter night and a clearer morning. It allows the body to settle into sleep without the agitation that late spikes can create. Managing nighttime glucose is much like dimming the lights in a room before sleep. It prepares the body, softens the edges of the day, and invites a sense of peace. When the night begins gently, the morning follows with steadier steps. And as these small adjustments accumulate, they create something larger, a foundation for energy, clarity, and resilience that carries into the hours to come. This brings us to the final reflection, where the wisdom of the world's longest living elders reminds us that health is not built in grand gestures, but in the quiet consistency of simple choices. There is a tenderness in the way Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara spoke about aging. He believed that the greatest secret to living long was not found in grand routines or strict regimens, but in easing the small stresses that accumulate quietly over the years. Among those silent stresses, Blood sugar spikes were one of the most discreet. They rarely announce themselves with pain. They do not shout for attention. They simply rise and settle, leaving subtle marks on energy, clarity, and the way mornings feel. And with age, as the body becomes more sensitive, these small marks begin to matter. The journey we explored together reveals something comforting. Aging does not demand perfection. It does not require flawless discipline or complete reinvention. What it asks for is gentleness, awareness, small shifts that respect the new rhythm of a body that has carried many years and many memories. In that rhythm, one food rises to quiet importance. Beans. Humble, steady, accessible beans. They improve how the body handles glucose, not only in the meal they accompany, but in the hours afterward. They extend their support beyond the plate, and this is why they sit at the center of so many long-living cultures. Dan Buettner, who spent years studying the world's longest-lived communities, noticed a pattern that rarely appears in medical guidelines, but often appears in kitchens. Pots of beans simmering slowly, served daily, woven into every generation's life. Not because they were considered a health trick, but because they offered nourishment that endured. They provided stable energy for days filled with work, family, and ritual. They steadied the body long before glucose spikes were something people discussed. The message here is quiet and deeply human. You do not need dramatic diets or overwhelming rules to support your blood sugar after 60. You do not need to rebuild your life overnight. Even a single tablespoon of beans at one meal can begin to soften the rise in glucose, easing the burden on the body without strain. It is a gesture of care rather than correction, a way of telling your body, I hear you, I am with you. Every stable meal becomes an act of protection for your future mobility, your memory, your steadiness, your independence. These small acts add up. They build a foundation beneath your feet, reminding you that aging is not merely decline. It is adaptation. It is wisdom. It is the chance to live with more intention and less noise.